Several groups, especially fisherfolk, questioned the Supreme Court ruling allowing commercial vessels on municipal waters. Joining us via Zoom is Oceana Philippines Senior Director for Campaigns, Legal and Policy, Attorney Liza Osorio. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us, Attorney.
Good morning, Paolo. Thank you for having us.
This has been a controversial ruling from the SC with House inquiries being proposed, as well as a lot of blowback here coming from the Department of Agriculture and even different groups when it comes to this particular ruling. How is this going to impact the livelihood of farmers if this ruling is not overturned?
Yeah, the Supreme Court ruling, if it becomes final and executory, will actually set back the reforms that we have made in managing properly our fishing grounds, which is the lifeline and the livelihood of our municipal fisher folk. And so our fishing grounds, as based on studies by scientists, are already in a declining state. And so it will push it back further, and perhaps, if it is already on the brink of collapse, it will actually make this harder for our fisher folk to maintain their livelihood and sustenance for their families.
Mm-hmm. For those who do not know, it's a 15-kilometer municipal waters that is being in contention here. Attorney, your organization has said that should this be allowed, this will allow commercial fishing to happen in around 90% of the waters around the Philippines. Of course, how will that impact not only the farmers but the environment as well?
Oh yes, this will actually have a huge impact on our environment and our coastal habitats, which are actually within the 15-kilometer municipal water area. So erasing that, and using the 7 fathoms deep, which is based on our assessment, will affect 90% of our municipal waters, will actually, lead to the destruction of our coral reefs and actually all the decimation of our fishing grounds, which are actually vital to the life and, the livelihoods of our municipal fisher folks. And these are areas that are very, still has to be protected, has to have fisheries management, and other measures in order to ensure that we address the declining state of our fisheries in this area. So having the municipal waters being intruded and allowed for fishing by commercial fishing vessels, which are huge commercial fishing vessels, will actually lead to a setback to all the existing reforms that we have in these areas.
The Department of Agriculture has issued a motion for reconsideration through the Office of the Solicitor General when it comes to this particular petition, but then rather this particular ruling. But as well, there are different groups, including your own, who have filed a petition to intervene before the court. What is the intent of for that particular petition?
Yes, we want to seek, of course, a reconsideration of the Supreme Court ruling, because we are allowed to seek for reconsideration. And under our rules of procedure for environmental cases, ordinary citizens, civil society organizations, fisher folk are allowed to intervene in these cases before the decision attains its finality. And so our intent is really to seek for social justice, which is the spirit of our Constitution and the preferential right given to our fisher folk to access our municipal water resources. And so I think we want to make sure that those who have less in life will have more in law, which is the essence of social justice. And gusto namin patas, ang laban, and this is for the livelihood of our artisanal fisher folks.
Of course, you talk about the artisanal fisher folks, of course, the small fisher folk compared to the commercial fishing vessels that we see. When it comes to the impact on the coral in particular, the DA did mention that there is risk that at the depth of 7 fathoms or 12 meters, corals are at risk and could be damaged. Will corals actually be healthier? Should only small fisher folk be allowed in that area of the 15 kilometers for the municipal waters?
Yes, commercial fishers are often equipped with active and often destructive fishing gears. And, this is actually occurring right now, even if the law actually currently disallows them to intrude into municipal waters. And as we see it, the consequences are dire. We have depleted fish stocks, the loss of critical spawning grounds, worsening poverty, and hunger among our already marginalized fisher folk communities.
Of course, this is one of the major concerns for your organization for sure, but then let's also talk about some of the other concerns that you consider as threats to the environment, in particular around municipal waters. Illegal fishing especially has been something that we have to discuss in general. How is that a threat to marine diversity, or at least sustaining that here in the country?
Yeah, so illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, which is actually the essence of, RA 10654, the amendment given to the Fisheries Code in 2015, is really prevalent all over the municipal waters in the country. So we have our Karagatan Patrol, which actually detects the presence of these illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activities inside municipal waters. And we see, though, that this, as I mentioned earlier, these commercial fishing vessels are often equipped with very efficient gears and very destructive gears as well. So you have what you call modified Danish seine, which is actually already illegal per se, but actually still being detected all over the archipelago. And this uses tom weights that are very heavy material that will be dragged on our fishing on the seafloor. And so this actually bottom trawling is actually one of the biggest issues that we have. So these are actually very, very destructive,
Yeah.
and it sets back decades of work on restoring and managing this fishing grounds.
Attorney, of course, we also have to touch on reclamation and, of course, plastic waste that has been a problem throughout the past decades, really. When you take a look at the Philippines, especially with how much plastic waste it is producing, especially from a world view or a world standpoint. Just what is Oceana Philippines doing about it? How can viewers participate in the advocacy of trying to fight against that? And of course, your take on reclamation.
Yeah, for plastics, actually, we have actually a current campaign to ban single-use plastics, as we know that the effects of these plastics, the usage of these plastics, will actually, affect also our marine environment. And so we see that, only 7% of our plastic waste, or all waste in general in the Philippines, are managed properly. And so where does the 93% waste, including single-use plastics, end up? So Oceana decided to file a case, a lawsuit, urging the National Solid Waste Management Commission to finally list and phase out single-use plastic items. And so while the case is still currently in the Supreme Court, we actually got a favorable ruling at the Court of Appeals, which actually urges or orders the National Commission to now start listing what single-use plastics will be banned moving on. And so this is actually, like, after 2 decades of inaction, we're quite happy that the court is actually siding with us in making sure that at least we start with the low-hanging fruits, phasing out those single-use plastics that already have alternatives in mind. So that is for our single-use plastics campaign. For reclamation, as you know, we've also been fighting against reclamation, especially in Manila Bay. We have detected 23 applications, and there are ongoing reclamation projects, as we can see, obviously, in Manila Bay and all over the country. This is actually also happening. And so these projects are actually very, very destructive, because the impacts on the coastal and marine ecosystems are irreversible. Once you dump and fill in materials to these areas, you can no longer bring it back to its original condition. And so this affects permanently the livelihood, and of course displaces a lot of coastal communities that are directly dependent on the fisheries and other resources, that especially in Manila Bay as well, that they are also very, very marginalized, because they are the poorest of the poor sector. But then you're basically taking away their only means of livelihood by replacing them with cemented areas, which are
Yes.
meant for condominiums, malls, etc.
Attorney, thank you very much for all of the insight, and of course, we hope to have you again soon. That was Oceana Philippines Senior Director for Campaigns, Legal, and Policy, Attorney Liza Osorio. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you for having us.